Hello everyone, thanks for watching Master of Business Administration. I am Sunny N. Today's I am teaching you planning under the subject principle of management. In this picture you're seeing that planning is deciding in present what is to be done in future. Deciding in advance what is to be done, when and where is it to be done, how it is to be done and by whom. It bridges the gap from where we are to where we want to go. Next. Planning is defined as the organization's goals, establishing strategies for achieving those goals, and developing plans to integrate and coordinate work activities. Planning involves defining the organization's goals, establishing strategies for achieving those goals, and developing plans to integrate and coordinate work activities. It's concerned with both ends, what and means, how. When we use the term planning, we mean formal planning. In formal planning, specific goals covering a specific time period are defined. These goals are written and shared with organizational members to reduce ambiguity and create a common understanding about what needs to be done. Finally, specific plans exist for achieving these goals. Next, so why should managers plan? We can give you at least 4 reasons. First, planning provides direction to managers and non-managers alike. When employees know what their organization or work unit is trying to accomplish and what they must contribute to reach goals, they can coordinate their activities, cooperate with each other, and do what it takes to accomplish those goals. Next, planning reduces uncertainty by forcing managers to look ahead, anticipate change, consider the impact of change, and develop appropriate responses. Although planning won't eliminate uncertainty, managers plan so they can respond effectively. In addition, planning minimizes waste and redundancy. When work activities are coordinated around plans, inefficiencies become obvious and can be corrected or eliminated. Finally, planning establishes the goals or standards used in controlling. When managers plan, they develop goals and plans. When they control, they see whether the plans have been carried out and the goals met. Next. Now, planning and performance. Numerous studies shown generally positive relationships between planning and performance. Formal planning is associated with positive financial results, higher profits, higher return on assets, and so forth. Doing a good job planning and implementing those plans play a bigger part in high performance than how much planning is done. In those studies where formal planning didn't lead to higher performance, the external environment often was the culprit. When external forces, think governmental regulations or powerful labor unions, constrain managers' options, it reduces the impact planning has on an organization's performance. Finally, the planning-performance relationship seems to be influenced by the planning time frame. It seems that at least 4 years of formal planning is required before it begins to affect performance. Now, goals and planning. Goals, objectives, are desired outcomes or targets. They guide management decisions and form the criterion against which work results are measured. That's why they're often described as the essential elements of planning. You have to know the desired target or outcome before you can establish plans for reaching it. Plans are documents that outline how goals are going to be met. They usually include resource allocations, schedules, and other necessary actions to accomplish the goals. As managers plan, they develop both goals and plans. Next, we can classify most companies' goals as either strategic or financial. Financial goals are related to the financial performance of the organization, while strategic goals are related to all other areas of an organization's performance. For instance, McDonald's states that its financial targets are 3 to 5% average annual sales and revenue growth, 6 to 7% average annual operating income growth, and returns on invested capital in the high teens. Here's an example of a strategic goal from Bloomberg LP. We want to be the world's most influential news organization. Stated goals are official statements of what an organization says and what it wants its stakeholders to believe its goals are. However, stated goals, which can be found in an organization's charter, annual report, public relations announcements, or in public statements made by managers, are often conflicting and influenced by what various stakeholders think organizations should do. If you want to know an organization's real goals, those goals an organization actually pursues, observe what organizational members are doing. Actions define priorities. Now, we learn types of plans. The most popular ways to describe organizational plans are breadth, strategic versus operational, time frame, short-term versus long-term, specificity, directional versus specific, and frequency of use, single-use versus standing. In the figure it's shown that these types of plans aren't independent. That is, strategic plans are usually long-term, directional, and single-use, whereas operational plans are usually short-term, specific, and standing. The most popular ways to describe organizational plans are breadth, strategic versus operational, time frame, short-term versus long-term, specificity, directional versus specific, and frequency of use, single-use versus standing. Strategic plans are plans that apply to the entire organization and establish the organization's overall goals. Plans that encompass a particular operational area of the organization are called operational plans. These two types of plans differ because strategic plans are broad while operational plans are narrow. We define long-term plans as those with a time frame beyond 3 years. Short-term plans cover 1 year or less. Any time period in between would be an intermediate plan. Although these time classifications are fairly common, an organization can use any planning time frame it wants. Specific plans are clearly defined and leave no room for interpretation. A specific plan states its objectives in a way that eliminates ambiguity and problems with misunderstanding. Directional plans are flexible plans that set out general guidelines. They provide focus but don't lock managers into specific goals or courses of action. Some plans that managers develop are ongoing while others are used only once. A single-use plan is a one-time plan specifically designed to meet the needs of a unique situation. In contrast, standing plans are ongoing plans that provide guidance for activities performed repeatedly. Standing plans include policies, rules, and procedures. Next, now, the traditional. In traditional goal setting, goals set by top managers flow down through the organization and become sub-goals for each organizational area. This traditional perspective assumes that top managers know what's best because they see the big picture. And the goals passed down to each succeeding level guide individual employees as they work to achieve those assigned goals. When the hierarchy of organizational goals is clearly defined, it forms an integrated network of goals, or a means-ends chain. Higher level goals, or ends, are linked to lower level goals, which serve as the means for their accomplishment. In other words, the goals achieved at lower levels become the means to reach the goals, ends, at the next level. And the accomplishment of goals at that level becomes the means to achieve the goals, ends, at the next level and on up through the different organizational levels. That's how traditional goal setting is supposed to work. A problem with traditional goal setting is that when top managers define the organization's goals in broad terms, such as achieving sufficient profits or increasing market leadership, these ambiguous goals have to be made more specific as they flow down through the organization. Managers at each level define the goals and apply their own interpretations and biases as they make them more specific. However, what often happens is that clarity is lost as the goals make their way down from the top of the organization to lower levels. A problem with traditional goal setting is that when top managers define the organization's goals in broad terms, such as achieving sufficient profits or increasing market leadership, these ambiguous goals have to be made more specific as they flow down through the organization. Managers at each level define the goals and apply their own interpretations and biases as they make them more specific. However, what often happens is that clarity is lost as the goals make their way down from the top of the organization to lower levels. Instead of using traditional goal setting, many organizations use management by objectives (MBO), a process of setting mutually agreed upon goals and using those goals to evaluate employee performance. MBO programs have 4 elements: goal specificity, participative decision making, an explicit time period, and performance feedback. Instead of using goals to make sure employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing, MBO uses goals to motivate them as well. The appeal is that it focuses on employees working to accomplish goals they've had a hand in setting. Now, nature of planning. First, planning is goal-oriented. Plans arise from objectives. Objectives provide guidelines for planning. Second, it is a primary function. Planning provides the basis foundation from which all future management functions arise. Third, it is persuasive. It is required at all levels of management. It is not an exclusive function of any management level or department. Managers have to plan for every change that occurs in an organization. However, the scope of planning differs at all levels and among different departments. Fourth, it is mental activity. Planning is a mental process involving imagination, foresightedness, and sound judgment. Plans are based on careful analysis of internal and external factors influencing business activities. It is carried out in a logical and systematic manner. Fifth, It is a continuous process. It is an ongoing process of adapting the organization with the changes in business environment. Since a business exists in a dynamic environment, it is necessary to continuously plan based on changing business needs and situations. Sixth, it involves choice. It is essentially a choice among various alternative course of action. A manager has to select the best alternative after careful analysis and evaluation. Seventh, it is forward-looking. Planning means looking ahead and preparing for the future. It involves analysis of the future needs and requirements of the business and preparing for it. Eighth, it is flexible. Planning is based on future forecast of events and situations. Since future is uncertain, plans are flexible enough to adapt with future change of events. Ninth, it is an integrated process. Plans are structured in a systematic and logical sequence where each plan or step is highly interdependent and mutually supportive. Next, now, the objective of planning. In the traditional approach, planning is done entirely by top-level managers who often are assisted by a formal planning department, a group of planning specialists whose sole responsibility is to help write the various organizational plans. Under this approach, plans developed by top-level managers flow down through other organizational levels, much like the traditional approach to goal setting. As they flow down through the organization, the plans are tailored to the particular needs of each level. First, an improvement in the standard of living of the people through a sizable increase in national income within a short period of time. Second, a large expansion of employment opportunities for the removal of unemployment and for creating jobs and incomes. Third, a reduction in all types of social, economic, and regional inequalities. Fourth, an efficient utilization of the country's resources for faster growth. Fifth, removal of mass poverty within a definite time limit through land reform, employment creation, and provision of educational and medical facilities. Sixth, attainment of self-reliance by reducing dependence on foreign capital and foreign aid. Now, importance of planning. The importance of planning are: first, planning provides direction. Planning provides direction and a sense of purpose for the organization. Without plans and goals, organizations merely react to daily occurrences without considering what will happen in the long run. Plans avoid this drift situation and ensure that short-range efforts will support and harmonize with future goals. It helps an organization decide what to do and when to do it. It reduces aimless activity and makes action more meaningful. Planning, second, provides a unifying framework. Planning forces people to continually address their efforts to the most important work rather than the least important. In the absence of a plan, unifying focus on company objectives may be missing. A plan tells everyone what the organization hopes to achieve and what the contribution of catch department must be, and who is to utilize resources to achieve the goals. Plans serve as the basis of coordinating the efforts of different divisions, departments, and people. In the absence of a plan, the organization would be pulled in different directions, creating confusion and misunderstanding at various levels. Third, planning is economical. Effective plans coordinate organizational work and eliminate unproductive effort. Guesswork is banished. Facilities are employed to the best advantage. Waste motions and idle facilities are removed. In the words of Keontz and O'Donnell, planning substitutes jointly directed efforts against uncoordinated, piecemeal activity, an even flow of work for an uneven flow, and deliberate decisions for snap judgments. By focusing attention on what is to be done, how and when it is to be done, plans helps an organization to utilize its physical and human resources in an economical way. This ultimately leads to efficiency of operations. Fourth, planning reduces the risks of uncertainty. Planning helps an organization to cope with an uncertain future. It helps management to anticipate the future and prepare for the risks by making necessary provisions to meet the unexpected turn of events. Planning enables a manager, in the words of Drucker, to affect rather than accept the future. In the absence of a plan, the organization is much more likely to sit back and let things happen and then react to these happenings in a crisis mode. Planning minimizes the chances of mistakes and unpleasant surprises because objectives, policies, and strategies are formulated after a careful scrutiny of internal as well as external environment. Planning, thus, seeks to minimize risk while taking the advantage of opportunities. It keeps management alert to environmental changes and manage the uncertain future in a useful way. Fifth, Planning facilitates decision making. Decision making involves searching of various alternative courses of action, evaluating them, and selecting the best one. Plan targets serve as the criteria for the evaluation of different alternatives so that the best one may be chosen. If there are no plans for the future, there are few guidelines for making current decisions. For example, decisions have to be made in present for a product to be introduced 3 years in the future. When future plans exist, decisions consistent with the future plans are made. Further, without plans, people will make decisions according to their. Sixth, planning encourages innovation and creativity. Planning involves looking ahead and preparing for the future. The process of looking ahead forces an organization to be alert of opportunities and threats in the environment. It forces managers to find out new and improved ways of doing things in order to remain competitive and avoid the threats in the environment. It compels the managers to be creative and innovative all the time. Planning helps managers to visualize problems early and take suitable remedial steps. It helps them encash managed effort of an organization to develop new products or services or new uses for existing products or services. Seventh, creativity, the generation of novelties that may meet perceived needs or offer opportunities for the organization. Opportunities and come out as winners in a competitive world. Next, now, planning in organization level. The process to developing plans is influenced by 3 contingency factors: organizational level, degree of environmental uncertainty, and length of future commitments. First, organizational level. Planning in organizational level shows that relationship between a manager's level in the organization and the type of planning done. For the most part, lower level managers do operational planning while upper level managers do strategic planning. It shows the relationship between a manager's level in the organization and the type of planning done. For the most part, lower level managers do operational planning while upper level managers do strategic planning. The second contingency factor is environmental uncertainty. When uncertainty is high, plans should be specific, but flexible. Managers must be prepared to change or amend plans as they're implemented. At times, they may even have to abandon the plans. Third contingent factor is length of future commitment concept, a concept which says that plans should extend far enough to meet the commitments made when plans were developed. Which means, current plans affecting future commitments must be sufficiently long-term in order to meet those commitments. In the traditional approach, planning is done entirely by top-level managers who often are assisted by a formal planning department, a group of planning specialists whose sole responsibility is to help write the various organizational plans. Under this approach, plans developed by top-level managers flow down through other organizational levels, much like the traditional approach to goal setting. As they flow down through the organization, the plans are tailored to the particular needs of each level. Although this approach makes managerial planning thorough, systematic, and coordinated, all too often the focus is on developing the plan, a thick binder, or binders full of meaningless information that's stuck on a shelf and never used by anyone for guiding or coordinating work efforts. Next, thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe and share this video. Subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for getting more updates about this subject.